if
The
you look at
radicalization,
at
the radicalization is a major problem, because it doesn't. Well, first of all, from my perspective, it does not serve the vast majority of citizens, uh, no matter what. Have an extremely, radicalized polity, and I mean, it's great if you're in marketing and you happen to work campaigns, you know. Um,
right.
I, I want to also point out. I think what I think how we get to so many people unenrolled, and first of all, I'm going to admit I didn't realize it was it was a thing, if you will, going back as far as it has, right? So the initial statistic I gave, they started to really track this somewhere in and about 1956, and so from 1956 to 1976, you get this, where it reaches up to being, 36% of the voting block, and then it stays pretty strong at about a third from 1976 to now, according to the sources that I cited there.
I
Um,
wonder why Massachusetts is so much higher than that.
well, so now I'm going to get to that, and I don't know if it's specific to Massachusetts, but all around us, the younger people are, the more likely. We're living in an epoch of time right now across a lot of other social phenomena, not just politics, where institutions, especially those that have proven to fail us time and time and again, are, if they're not themselves dismantling, people are just walking away from those social institutions, those cultural institutions, political institutions. So I wonder if the propensity, and what I wasn't able to put together before our episode just now, is, I'd like to see how that skews by age, for one, because I would posit that, there's a lot, the younger you are, the less likely that being in a party matters. I mean,
That,
and honestly, why be a part of a party? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it gets you what you want politically, but in a world where increasingly it's not, what would be the point of having that affiliation? Or does it matter, period? That's another question that I really, in thinking about this episode, because this isn't one person interviewing another, we're supposed to have our ideas. I have a lot of ideas in general. I'm not so sure it's a bad thing to have as many unenrolled people as there are. I don't know that what it would change about our current situation or not.
well,
Uh,
no, I like it, but I see a problem though. The problem is that there's only two legitimate parties that are chosen for us. So you have 60% of the people that are unenrolled, but they have nowhere to vote. They don't have an identity. It goes back to what I was saying. It's like a team, right? You like a particular team. Say you like the Red Sox, you get a Red Sox jersey. You get to like some of the players. You have an identity. You kind of, it's a brand, and you identify with that team, and you root for them, and it becomes sort of like your identity. Like I've been, rooting for the Red Sox my whole life. That might be a bad analogy, but the point is, when you're unenrolled, you get to the polling booths, you're like, I don't have an unenrolled person I can vote for. You get nobody. So
right.
so you gotta pick a side. So the monopoly of the Democrats and the Republicans, and don't get me wrong, I'm with George Washington in his farewell address and James Madison. There has to be at least two political parties to keep the government honest. There has to be checks and balances. But when it gets so diverse, when it gets so polar like it is now, what happens is, I think the phenomenon we see is that you get a bunch of people that are unenrolled who don't want to be divided that way, don't want to be so diverse, and they want something maybe in the middle, maybe not, but something other than Democrat, Republican. They get nowhere to go. So they go to the polling booths and they got to pick D or R. So and it goes right back to the old, well, the Democrats are for the poor people and the Republicans are for the rich people. So a lot of people who don't follow this stuff, that don't do a lot of, let's face it, people have kids, or people, or students are studying at school. People are busy, they're working two jobs. They don't have a lot of time, like maybe some of us do, to do a lot of research on this. So they go in there and they say, well, I don't see any independents on the ballot. I don't see any unenrolleds on the ballot. Therefore, I guess I'm going to vote with the Democrats because they're for the poor people. I'm not making a lot of money right now.
Well, hey, and I went to high school with this guy. I mean, he can't be all that bad.
Oh, that too. I don't think that's happening too often.
Right? It's like
Nobody knows me anymore around here.
we
I'm
have to
the apostate. I'm the
we're gonna have to
apostate.
do we have to do an episode on how many people thought they were voting for this Scott Graves
Yeah, exactly.
and they actually were voting for that. I hope I didn't hurt you. I'm sorry. They were like, why am I voting for a former wedding a saxophone player? I just
Yeah, I was gonna say if it wasn't for you, if you didn't come over here and encroach on my territory, I would have crushed Nicholson. I would have crushed. I would have crushed him. You took me down. You took me down. They thought I was a liberal. They killed me.
I've had this existential problem for the 15 years I've lived here. People have thought I'm you and they've thought you're me. And you know what's sad about that is like a lot of these people have lived here all their lives and you have too. Like what like
Well, I think we didn't say this at the
figure it
beginning.
out.
We both have the same exact name. We just have different middle initials. Did we even say that?
We didn't in the beginning. No, that's what I'm saying. It's just this is like a match made in heaven. We both have we have this variety of political ideas, but we both believe in moderation and also in intellectual discussion and rationality and all that kind of stuff. And we happen to both be Scott Graves.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Every show needs to have a gimmick. There we go. That's what it is, man.
It's almost like we made it up.
Yeah. You could. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what's so great about it is you can't make this up.
Well, I was thinking before you got here. I don't know if you were you from the Haverhill area or something like that.
No, I grew up in a town called, you know what it is, but our listeners will be like, what? I grew up in Spencer, about an
Oh,
hour.
okay, yeah. Where they make the jam there at this at the Abbey.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Trappist
So
monks.
I think when you came to Gardner, you just looked around and said, "Who's the smartest, best looking, and most respected citizen here?" And you just took my name. You just changed your name.
Shit, I can get so much traction with this. Gardner it is. Gardner it is. You know.
Anyways, yeah.
Now I'm gonna bring up the local election. I know it's a sore spot for you, but here's something
No, it isn't.
because it deeply ties to this whole theme of the unenrolled voter and trying to pick this thing apart. So here's some stats for our local listeners. You had a war chest of about $2,000, and
Was it that much?
unfortunately, money means something in politics. So
Oh, you think?
your opponent did not had a little bit more money than that.
A little?
Some probably $50,000, and I can't quite remember right now how much of that was spent. Although I remember it was at least maybe 2/3 or more of it was spent. So there's that one comparison. Now, some other factoids about this special election. It was a special election. We had a mayor who was actually voted in, and then essentially quit. We had a shortened campaign, and that campaign was affected by by the zombie apocalypse on top of it, right at the beginning of it too. So the sort of ground rules of how we deal with COVID-19 weren't as well defined.
No, it was an elongated campaign.
Well, oh, that's right, because we canceled the dates twice.
Yeah, it kept going and going. It wouldn't stop.
There was, in my opinion, there was funny business with polling locations and all kinds of other what ifs that sort of went into the mix. So in the end, now I can't remember the term you used earlier in the podcast here, but you didn't win.
I got hammered.
You got hammered. That's what it was. You got hammered.
Just,
Yeah. With the resources that you had, you got 30% of the vote.
roughly. I got almost 1,000 votes, I think, which I considered very legitimate votes.
Right. So
With no persuasion whatsoever, no advertising, no nothing, no door knocking, no money.
you were going
So
you were going pre-Jacksonian era campaigning.
yeah, pretty much.
Understand that before Andrew Jackson it was considered uncouth for presidential candidates or anybody running for any office. Like you couldn't be seen campaigning, right? Your
Right.
friend did that for you out on the streets, but you're like, hey man,
It was beneath us. Like attorneys couldn't advertise there for in like the 50s and 60s. You would never be caught dead advertising.
right.
You'd become a scoundrel.
So do you know what's the percentage of those voters that were unenrolled?